Meeting is being recorded.
After this is over, we'll send out a link to the recording, along with some links to data sheets and some other stuff like that. So get this on the screen. Awesome. Okay. I got to start every good presentation with a meme, right? You know, Reddit brought me this one this week, and I thought it was oddly appropriate given our topic this week. I'm not much of a sci-fi guy, so I thought that might be Dumbledore in the bottom frame, but I don't think so. And I know I'm probably making Lance cringe over there. you got to be unicast or multicast to get into Mordor, right?
Yeah, so it's still a good laugh.
So I really like this slide. I mean, this shows our timeline of the Cisco branch routers, right? I think you can data engineer based on which of these they're familiar with. You know, I have to admit, I didn't get started in the industry till 2010, but I did work on some 2600s. I used to use them for terminal servers. So, you know, the other thing, obviously we're talking a lot about the ISR 1Ks and the ISR 4Ks today, but they're not brand new. I mean, we introduced the first 4K back in 2013, right? The 4451s. So they've been around a while. I think a lot of folks have had some exposure to the ISR G3s, ISR 4Ks, but you know, you don't know what all the latest updates are. That's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, the latest models and latest updates. So this shows kind of the entire enterprise routing portfolio. The ISR 900s, we won't really cover today, but they're iOS classic. They're basically, they're kind of a one-for-one replacement almost for the ISR 800s. ISR 1Ks and 4Ks we'll be diving into today. We'll cover those in greater detail. The V-edges, those of course are the routing platforms that we got when we purchased up Viptela for our SD-WAN solution. We're still actively developing on those, still selling them, still putting them into production. We won't be talking about them today, but they are still out there, and we are still continuing to support those. The ASRs, of course, are bigger aggregation routers, you know, starting at 20 gig and going up beyond 100, just depending how big you need. We do see some of those in our enterprise customers, but more so for, you know, internet edge or, you know, the higher throughput needs. Cisco ENCS is basically our service chaining router. So that's a lot of virtualization and routing all baked into one. And then the CSR 1000V is our virtual routing platform. The only two we're really going to dive in deep on today will be the 1Ks and the 4Ks. And we're not going to talk much about SD-WAN today. I think we'll save that for a later date, but yeah. So I think one of the
turn into a long presentation if we included the SD-WAN today with that.
Right. It's hard enough covering just ISRs in 1 hour, or just SD-WAN in 1 hour, let alone both. So I think the first big change we want to talk about when we start talking about the ISR 4Ks is the introduction of iOS XE. The big thing about iOS XE is it's modular, right? And that affords us a lot of the benefits we'll talk about on this slide here. But, you know, you can have a single image on a given platform. Back with classic iOS, we had separate images for LAN base and IP base, and it was always a pain to manage. You can have, for a given platform, you can have a single image across that model. We're also kind of trying to standardize the software, right? So iOS XE isn't just on the ISR routers. It's on the Catalyst 9Ks. It's on the ASR 1Ks. It's on our wireless controllers now with the Catalyst 9800s. So it's definitely worth getting familiar with, you know. So I started off talking about that modularity. Some of the benefits that affords us, plug and play, right? So especially if you're pairing the ISRs with Cisco SD-WAN, or you're pairing the Catalyst 9Ks with DNA Center, you can do zero touch or single touch provisioning, you know, to easily onboard new hardware. Programmatic interfaces. I mean, there's basically two types of network engineers out there. Either you are automating or you're probably going to be automating soon, right? We support netconf, restconf. We can do Linux containers on the ISRs so that we can run VWAs or third-party apps on the routers themselves. Since we're modular, we can do ISSU, right? In-service software updates. So you can actually do, in certain cases, updates on the box without any hit to production traffic. So, and the way that works is because different parts of the configuration run on different modules. And so you can actually update and restart a given module without affecting all the rest. That also lends itself to the stability of the box, right? So if I have an issue in the MPLS module and that thing has to reboot, that it won't necessarily affect other production traffic or the entire box, right? We don't just have to hard reboot the whole thing. So that modularity really benefits us there. Streaming telemetry, this is something we don't talk about enough. You know, SNMP, been around a long time, going to be around a lot longer, but it isn't particularly well standardized, and polling, SNMP polling is kind of slow, right? We're doing it every few minutes. Streaming telemetry actually gives us the ability to push Yang model data to a collector, you know, and this is how like DNA Center works, but that's open and standardized. So you can actually use that streaming telemetry with any collector of your choice. You know, you can take that into like Splunk, for example.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add there is the best way to think of that is SNMP is basically us always asking if people are okay. You're just polling, hey, are you fine? Hey, are you fine? Instead of it proactively sending something out. So that's the ability to do the telemetry that's streaming there.
Yeah, for sure. Great point. I mean, how often do you get an alert from SNMP and the box went down 5 or 10 minutes ago, right? The customers are already calling in, so it's good to get that real-time data when we can. Talk about licensing real quick. So there's really 2 types of licenses on the ISR 4000s. We have the feature licenses, so security, which covers your IPsec or zone-based firewall, application experience, which is security and advanced networking, VXLAN, PFR, and NVAR. You may be familiar with from Cisco IWAN. And then, of course, we have the unified collaboration or voice license that covers Cube and CME and SRST. In addition to those, we also have performance licenses. So I'll show you on the data sheets kind of what that looks like, but all the routers have a default throughput shaper that limits the throughput you can put through that router on day one. Now, in addition to that, you can purchase a performance license, which will lift that shaper, unlock cores on the CPU, and raise the total throughput available for the router. In addition to that, you can purchase a boost license, which will just remove the shaper altogether. Now, there's all sorts of limitations around that, right? As we start unlocking those cores, that takes up resources we could be using for container applications and stuff like that. So there's certain restrictions around it. But I really like this model because what's the issue we always run into when we go to size a router, right? What we need it for on day one isn't going to be the same as what we need it for on day 365, right? So if you buy a router for the 1 gig throughput you need today, and then you grow out of that, what do you have to do? You have to go in, replace that router, take a maintenance window, make another capital purchase for another router. It's kind of a pain. With the performance license, you can kind of grow into that, right, without actually replacing hardware. So I think it's a great benefit to our customers. So let's talk about the models. I'm not going to deep dive into every model we have here, but this gives you a pretty good idea of the 4Ks in general. We see a lot of the 4300s in the small to medium branches. I see a lot of 4451s, 4461s for internet edge or data center core routing, stuff like that. You do have to go to the 4400s if you want redundant power supplies. So I know that's kind of a stickler for some folks. And the only one that has onboard 10 gig interfaces is the 4461, which we'll talk about in depth. And all these are SD-WAN ready. All the routers we talk about today are going to be SD-WAN ready. So forwarding throughput, I mentioned the performance and boost licenses earlier. This gives you an idea for the given models, what that factory default throughput is, what we can lift it to with the performance license, and in the wild, what we can lift it to with the boost license by taking that shaper off altogether. I really, really like this slide because it actually shows, CPU, right? I mean, all the time we get numbers from marketing and it's like, can we really run that? And obviously, results may vary depending on what sort of features you're running, IPsec and whatnot, but this gives you a pretty good idea. That boost license I was talking about, that is enforced. So you do actually have to purchase that if you want to put it on. I mentioned there's some restrictions if you add the boost license and kind of uncork that. On the 4300s, container services aren't supported. What I do really like, I actually didn't even know this config was here, but the platform hardware throughput level, that'll actually show you what you're licensed for currently. So like I said, we're not going to dive into every single model, but I wanted to talk about a couple of the lesser well-known ones, and starting off with the 4461, this is the big boy, right? With the boost license, we can do up to 10 gig throughput, very configurable. I'll show you this slide here. We can support double wide service modules, a couple single wide service modules, up to 3 NIMs. It does have 10 gig combo ports on board, or you can add service modules if you need more. A few more tech specs here.
Yeah, and that was with like you mentioned on the 4461s, you can really grow into this with the ability to add those modules as needed. So if you start off with the 210 gig that are built in, if you need more, you just add one of the NIMs in there, service module. So it's definitely one of those that it's one that you can grow into or expand as needed, or even swap out if those roles change to where you're not fixed in with just, I only have these available to me. So yeah, this one's really cool.
Yeah, it's a big guy. I mean, it's pretty high throughput for ISRs at least. Don't tend to see this in branch offices too much, but we do see quite a few customers putting them on their internet edge, right? Especially if you're pulling 1 gig connections from multiple providers, or using it for aggregation in an SD-WAN environment, right? Or a data center type location, for example. So totally to the other end of the spectrum, we've got the 4221X. Now this is the small guy, and this is actually, I think, the last 4K we released, so it's the newest of the series. Starts out at 35 meg, but can go up to about a gig with the boost license. This is a smaller footprint, right? It's not actually a regular 19-inch wide router. So if you are space limited, that gives you some flexibility there for like a tabletop deployment or something like that. One interesting restriction on the 4221s is that it doesn't support UC, so no voice services on the 4221. So there is limited NIM support as a result of that, right? You can't put an FXO or FXS card in this. One other thing that makes it a little bit different from the rest of the 4Ks is it has an external power supply. So no built-in power supply. There's actually a power brick that goes outside of it. So security is really at the core of these boxes. Secure boot of signed images. It's kind of an interesting feature we don't think about too terribly often, but it's an important piece of the puzzle, right? We have TAM modules built in with the cert installed at manufacturing. So this is really important when we start talking about zero-touch provisioning, right? If we're going to drop ship a box straight from the vendor into a customer branch, we want to know 2 things, right? If we're going to do zero touch, we want to know, 1, that box is going to end up connected to our organization and not some other malicious organization. And 2, we want to ensure that other boxes, let's say a malicious router, isn't getting synced up to our organization. The TAM modules and certificate chaining really helps to ensure that. Lots of runtime defenses. iOS XE, it runs on x86, right? So you got to have runtime defenses, address space layout randomization, built-in object size checking, all that sort of stuff to help prevent malicious code from running on it. Let's talk about modules. I think folks are familiar with most of these from the ISR G2s. There's not a lot of differences, but there's a lot that I think get forgotten about. You know, on the service module side, we have single wide and double wide service modules for LAN switching that can take you up to 48 ports. So if we go back to that 4461, and this has single wide service modules in it, you know, you can do a branch and a box type setup on a lot of these, right? You can have an ISR 4K, drop in a 48 port PoE module, and run a small branch off of just that one box. We also support NIM switching modules. I'm sure you guys have seen the 4-port and 8-port switch modules before. We even have an 8-port PoE model now. UCS-E, we'll dive in a little bit deeper on the next slide for the different UCS-E blades, but the idea is you can have compute right there in your router. So again, thinking of that branch and a box type setup, right? If you need a small file server, let's say, or DC at the branch, or you want something to run like Unity Connections voicemail, or maybe a virtualized WAS, you can actually do that within a UCS blade on the ISR 4K. Voice, we support a lot of the same voice functionality you'd expect, right? FXO, FXS, T1, E1. PVDM 4 goes up to 256 channels now. We also support PVDM service modules, the high density PVDM service modules, where we can get up to 3,000 channels in a big service module. And of course, those DSPs and PVDMs, you know, that's used for your UC applications, right? So let's say you need to do conferencing, you want to do a conference bridge on the router, you can do that with internally hosted PVDMs. And then of course WAN, you know, we can do 1 gig, 10 gig, T1, T3. One's been getting talked about a lot lately, of course, 3G, 4G. As SD-WAN gets more popular, a lot of folks want more WAN redundancy. A lot of places, you can only get one connection, right? I mean, I live in the boonies, so I can sympathize, right? LTE makes a great backup option we'll dive into a little bit later. So I mentioned the UCS E-blades. These have been around for a while. The M3s are the latest. You know, we can go up to 128 gig of RAM, 12 core, and a double wide service module. We do also have the little NIM. This actually goes in a NIM slot. Real small guy, 4 core, 8 gig of RAM. I think we can do up to 200 gigs of drive space on it. So pretty small, not a ton of uses for something like that, but you know, it does have its niche use cases. Do you have any customers running UCS-E, Lance? Seems like hasn't been very popular lately as HyperFlex Edge has started to gain momentum.
Yeah, and then of course everything's getting pushed to the cloud. There hasn't been a need to really have compute in the branch, but
we still see it every once in a while. I definitely have some customers running file servers like that, or you know, different branch applications.
Or any internal
services
you ran. Yeah.
So to summarize the 4Ks, you know, we have models that fit a wide variety of use cases: small branch, large branch, aggregation, internet edge. We're still doing a lot of the same things you guys remember from the ISR G1s and the ISR G2s, but we're doing a lot more too. Let's talk about the little brother to the 4K, the ISR 1000s. These are a bit newer. Smaller, definitely branch routers, a little bit different feature set we'll talk about, but you know, these are real similar to the ISR 800s. You've ever dealt with like the 881s, 891s. This is going to be a replacement for those going forward. You'll see, you know, feature-wise, pretty similar to the 4Ks, right? We're talking about a lot of the same things. They run iOS XE. You have the pay-as-you-grow licensing model. We have the same sort of security features that we were talking about before. Separate data and control planes. Again, that modularity of iOS XE is coming out. And they do support SD-WAN. So we won't dive too deep into that, but it's worth mentioning. I don't want to dive into every model because there's a lot of different flavors of the 1Ks. But as you can see, we go up to 480 meg crypto throughput. We have options with integrated Wi-Fi, integrated DSL, integrated LTE. We can do PoE up to 8 ports, I believe, on the largest model. Yeah, they come in just about every flavor, size, and color you can imagine. One other thing that does make them unique from most of the 4Ks, they also don't have internal power supplies. They're all external power supplies. But these are an awesome option for smaller to medium-sized branches. And again, that smaller footprint, right? They don't take up a whole rack unit. If you want to do like a desktop mount or, you know, a magnet mount, something like that, you get a little creative from a space perspective. One thing they are lacking, I know a lot of folks ask, why would I go with a small 4K over a 1K? Feature-wise, there's a few things missing in the 1K platform. One, we can't do TDM circuits, so like T1s are out, and there's no voice services, no FXO or FXS, no cube supported on the ISR 1Ks. From a mounting perspective, I love pointing this out. This is so cool. Totally the nerd in me, right? Like, who cares about a 19-inch rack mount kit? But since you have that external power supply, we actually make a rack mount kit that puts the power supply on a shelf with the router. So really cleans that up and makes it look nice. And the before and after pictures here are perfect. I mean,
yeah, I always have the
racks like that, right?
You know, I always have the power brick usually on top or somewhere on this
right.
So that's actually
and then
pretty
it ends
cool.
up it takes up a whole nother RU, right? Like it's total waste of space. But yeah, this is closer to what my lab looks like on the left, not the right, for sure. You know, I mentioned LTE. The 1Ks, we have a couple LTE options. We can do like USB LTE dongles. We can do a pluggable LTE module like this one. Support in the US, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon. I'm not sure about T-Mobile, but we definitely support those three. We have a few different modules depending on the carrier you go with and the speeds they can do, right? Cat 4 versus Cat 6 versus Cat 18. But we do support the external LTE antennas as well as GPS antennas if you want GPS capability. But the external LTE antennas, super important. I mean, if you are going to rely on LTE for your WAN connectivity, having it just plumbed in a router, you know, in the middle of the building, you're not going to get super great coverage. So being able to hook up an antenna, run it outside the building can be super useful depending on your construction. We can do integrated wireless LAN. So, you know, it's based off the 1815s, the Aeronets, but it's a 2x2 internal antenna, all baked in, AC Wave 2. So not Wi-Fi 6 yet. Hopefully those models are coming, but still AC Wave 2 is pretty popular out there. So this truly can give you a branch in a box type setup, right? We can get LTE on the box. We can get Wi-Fi baked into the box, get a handful of PoE switch ports. You for a small branch, you can do it all with this one. From a wireless perspective, though, how many small branches only need one AP? Right? We almost always need more than one. So one feature I really like to talk about on the 1K is Mobility Express. So you can actually use your WAP that's baked into the 1K as a controller and control up to 100 AEPs there locally at the site. This is great for expanding out into, the 5 or 10 APs even a small branch usually needs, right? Without having to deploy an additional controller to the site or have it come back to a centralized controller in the data center. Licensing on the 1K, I mentioned it's kind of similar to the 4Ks. You get IP base included. We do have the application experience licensing for this as well to unlock NBAR, PFR, that sort of stuff. And then we also have a security license to unlock IPsec and other crypto up to 50 meg. If you need to go beyond 50 meg and the platform supports it, then you'd be looking at the vPerf license, which would take it up to 250 meg, or the HSEC license, which removes that shaper altogether. Unencrypted traffic isn't affected by that shaper at all, right? We're only talking about encrypted traffic. So you can get full throughput on the 1Ks on day one, unencrypted. It's only that encrypted traffic, which anymore, all of our traffic is pretty much encrypted, right? I mean, we're going across the WAN, going across the internet, we're probably tunneling it back to data center, public cloud, or somewhere. So awesome. Well, that's what we had on the ISRs. I wanted to share one other takeaway with you guys, and we can end early.
Yeah, well, Jay's getting that. I just want to mention that the plan with this is pretty much a 30, 40-minute little tech talk of what we're introducing into products, things that are coming down the line, and the goal is every 2 weeks to have a different theme that we're going to go with. And so, like Jay started off with the ISRs here. Next, not this 2 weeks from now, I will cover the Catalyst 90, Catalyst 9K family. So we'll go into some of the, and also 1K. So the new 1Ks, 92, 93s, and kind of just what you can look at for those models, what comes with those, licenses with those, and and the goal is that if you have those topics you want or questions, feel free to always email us or AMs, or if you want different topics or suggestions, also reach out to us to let us know. But that's kind of the plan here. Is not really long. We don't really want to PowerPoint you to sleep or anything, so we'll try and keep it lively, but just enough to keep you informed so you can stay up to date with what's happening.
I don't PowerPoint anybody to sleep. That's why I put awesome memes in my presentation.
You do it.
Now, I wanted to show you guys a really cool tool. Obviously, we use this a lot internally, but this is out there, publicly available, tmgmatrix.cisco.com, and I'll send out the link with the recording. But the idea is you can come in here, plug in a switch or router model, model number of a module, model number of a transceiver, and it'll show you all the transceivers that are compatible with that. So, here I search for the 4451X, right, one of the ISRs we were just talking about. You can see all the different 1 gig, 10 gig transceivers we support, the type of fiber that it takes, type of connector, environmental variables. So, we do offer some hardened transceivers. This is a really cool tool, can be really useful for planning, right?
Yeah,
especially now we have so many different options, as far as breakouts and whatnot, breakout cables and splitters. There's a lot of different parts and pieces.
This is extremely helpful for when I was still on my customer side. I was deploying 9500s and I couldn't get a SFP to turn on. And so I've realized if you came here, you typed it in, it shows you there on that right side what the minimum requirement of code is. I had to upgrade the code on the 9500 to have the SFP I wanted to use with it. So I thought there was a hardware defect, only to find out it was a software limitation having this able to quickly pull that up was extremely helpful.
Yeah, this is an awesome link to have in your back pocket just in case. So I'll send this out to you guys along with the recording and some links to some data sheets for the products we talked about today. But that's all we have for today. Like Lance said, send over ideas for topics, things you want covered. If there's anything else we need to be doing to help you guys out, definitely shoot us an email or drop us a line, and hopefully everybody stay safe and stay healthy out there.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. See ya.